The Brahmaputra, a river of ancient whispers and modern might, winds through the verdant arteries of Assam. For centuries, its waters have carved stories into the very earth, shaping destinies with each ebb and flow. Beneath its tranquil stretches, a coiled power lies waiting, a primal force capable of both creation and absolute devastation. The people of Assam knew this dance intimately. A delicate balance struck between reverence and fear, between the promise of fertile silt and the dread of the deluge. Their lives, tied to the river's rhythm, were a testament to resilience, a fragile blossom clinging to the edge of an abyss. They built their homes, tilled their fields, and raised their children under the vast, watchful sky. Then, the true hunger of the Brahmaputra awoke, an unnatural, grotesque distortion of its familiar temperament. The skies wept for weeks, an endless, suffocating blanket of gray. The river, gorged beyond recognition, burst its banks with a sound like the world tearing itself asunder. It wasn't merely water, it was a liquid apocalypse, a vast, churning brown ocean that swallowed villages whole. It ripped trees from their ancestral roots and dragged everything in its path into its churning, indifferent maw. Homes became debris, and dreams became flotsam. When the waters finally receded, exhausted, they left behind a landscape irrevocably scarred. A profound silence descended, thick and suffocating, the silence of obliteration. It was a void where life had once teemed, replaced by the chilling whisper of a world reborn in desolation. It was 1979. Jadav Payeng, a boy barely 16, walked that shattered land, his young eyes absorbing the horrifying tableau left in the wake of the river's wrath. The sandbar, once a teeming fringe of life, was now a vast, bleached expanse, stretching out like a wound under the merciless Indian sun. The air was heavy with the stench of decay. Scattered across the baking sand lay the victims, hundreds of snakes, coiled and twisted, their scales dulled by the sun's relentless hammer. Their bodies were brittle, their life force long since leached away. These creatures of shadow and mystery were now reduced to pathetic, dried husks, left to bake alive on an alien, unforgiving surface. Jadav knelt, his heart a raw, bleeding wound in his chest. He saw not just dead reptiles, but imagined their slow, agonizing torture, the frantic struggles for cover that wasn't there. Their eyes, once glinting with ancient wisdom, were now clouded, staring blankly at an unforgiving sky. It was a mass grave, a silent testament to nature's sudden cruelty, a horrifying vision for a boy who knew the jungle as vibrant life. The sheer scale of death pressed down with unbearable weight, a grief transcending species. In that moment, something shifted within Jadav, a seed of defiant sorrow planted deep by the suffering he witnessed. Jadav looked around, his gaze sweeping the vast, empty canvas of the sandbar, seeing only endless, shimmering sand reflecting the sun's malice. A chilling thought pierced him. If nothing changed, this would happen again and again. The sandbar would remain a monument to death, an ever-expanding wasteland. Despair, cold and sharp, threatened to consume him, but the image of those lifeless snakes refused to release him. He couldn't unsee what he had seen, couldn't unfeel the heartbreak. In that quiet, desperate moment, a fierce, unyielding resolve hardened within him. He would bring back life, one seedling at a time. Jadav began, alone, a boy with fierce purpose. He gathered saplings from his village, carrying them across the treacherous sands. He dug with his bare hands, the sun a relentless hammer on his back, planting fragile shoots one after another, day after day. Each tiny sapling was a desperate act of faith against impossible odds. His elders, seeing his strange, solitary ritual, shook their heads, dismissing it as the foolish obsession of a heartbroken youth. "You're wasting your time, Jadav," they'd say. "The river will just take it all away again. The sand will swallow it. Nothing grows here." Their words were like pebbles against a rock, unable to penetrate his determination. The initial years were a crucible of disappointment. Many young trees withered, their delicate roots unable to find purchase in the unforgiving soil, leaves curling into brittle husks under the relentless sun. For every 10 trees he planted, perhaps only one survived. The work was endless, monotonous, and utterly exhausting. Jadav moved with a quiet, almost ritualistic rhythm, carrying water from distant sources, nurturing each sapling as if it were his own child. His hands became calloused, his skin weathered, his shoulders permanently stooped from the labor. He lived a life of profound solitude, his only companions the wind, the sun, and a stubborn hope. Jadav Payeng was learning, observing, listening to the silent language of the land. Understanding a forest was an intricate web of life. He recognized the sterility of the soil, the lack of life beneath the surface. Then, an unexpected ally emerged, industrious red ants, working tirelessly, churning the sand, enriching the otherwise lifeless soil. He began to transplant red ants from other areas, carefully carrying their colonies, introducing them to his struggling sandbar. It was a peculiar, almost mystical act, a man placing his trust in the smallest, most overlooked creatures. He understood that nature often held the answers, if only one was humble enough to listen. Years bled into decades. The sandbar, once desolate, began to show faint brushstrokes of change. A stubborn patch of grass, a low-lying shrub, a single resilient tree. Then, other life began to notice. Insects arrived, drawn by the nascent greenery, and birds perched on slender branches, their songs a tentative promise of return. The air itself began to shift, gaining a hint of damp earth, a whisper of shade. Jadav, now a man in his prime, continued his silent vigil, his steps unwavering, his commitment absolute. He had no grand strategy, only an unbreakable will forged in heartbreak, and an intimate, intuitive understanding of the land he sought to heal. The forest was no longer a dream. It was a burgeoning reality, transforming from a barren stretch into a vibrant, living entity. Trees grew taller, their branches intertwining, forming a nascent canopy filtering harsh sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The soil, once sterile, was now rich and dark, teeming with life. The scale of his achievement was staggering. 1,360 acres, more than 2 square miles of dense, flourishing jungle. It was a sprawling, wild kingdom in the heart of Assam, a self-sustaining ecosystem born from the unwavering dedication of one man. With the forest came the return of its ancient inhabitants. The rustle in the undergrowth was the cautious movement of deer, their eyes wide and wary, while the chirping of birds turned into a symphony, a cacophony of life proclaiming its return. Then, creatures of myth and majesty, the true rulers of the wild, began to arrive. Herds of wild elephants, their massive forms moving like silent titans through the trees, found sanctuary and sustenance. Their trumpeting calls, once a memory, now echoed through the forest, a powerful affirmation of its rebirth. And then, the apex predator, the elusive ghost of the jungle, the Bengal tiger, arrived. Its presence felt as a shadow moving through the deepest thickets, a silent guardian. Jadav now shared his creation with creatures of immense power, yet even this peril brought him profound joy. He built a small hut on the forest's edge, an unobtrusive dwelling, a silent sentinel watching over his green kingdom. For 37 years, Jadav Payeng rose with the sun, his days dictated by his growing forest. He didn't just plant, he protected, patrolling its borders against encroachment and poachers. He saw himself as the servant of this forest, a humble caretaker entrusted with a sacred task. The sandbar that had once whispered of death now thrummed with the vibrant pulse of life, a testament to his unbreakable spirit. His skin was leathered by sun and wind, his hair silvered with age, but his eyes still held the fierce, unwavering light of that 16-year-old boy who had knelt heartbroken beside hundreds of dead snakes. He became known as the Forest Man of India, his story a potent symbol of hope and individual power. His work, born of grief, became a beacon for a world grappling with environmental degradation. He proved that even against overwhelming odds, one person could rewrite the fate of an entire landscape. He didn't seek fame or fortune. He sought only to mend a broken piece of the world, to bring back the life that had been so cruelly taken. His forest stands as a living monument, a breathing, rustling testament to the enduring truth, that even in the face of despair, one small act of planting can blossom into an entire world.